Hi, I'm Sarah. Today I'm going to read you the story of Claire, which is titled like this: My stepdad secretly moved his daughter and her family into my apartment, dumping my things in the garage. He shrugged. She deserves this apartment more than you. To make matters worse, Mom sided with them. So I did it. Well, let's go. My name is Claire Wilson, and at 25, I've been living in a cramped staff apartment on the opposite coast, trading the familiar streets of my hometown for a temporary assignment that promised to boost my career. The apartment is functional but sterile, nothing like the cozy 3-bedroom place I inherited from my dad back home. Dad died in a plane crash just a year after I finished college. The news hit me like a physical blow. One moment he was texting me about his business trip, and the next, his name was on a passenger list on the news. He left me his apartment and enough money to give me stability, something he always worried about providing after my parents divorced when I was 13. The divorce wasn't messy, just sad. Dad moved into his own apartment while Mom and I stayed in our family home. I visited Dad on weekends, and for 2 years, we settled into a new rhythm. Then Mom met Richard. Richard wasn't terrible. He was just there, taking up space that used to be ours. 2 years after the divorce, Mom remarried, and Richard moved in. A year later, when I was 16, they had a son, my half-brother Ethan. "Claire, could you watch Ethan while we go out tonight?" became Mom's most frequent sentence to me. Not "how was school," or "how are you feeling?" Just requests related to her new family. Then there was Jessica, Richard's daughter from his first marriage. 10 years older than me, she was already married with a baby when our parents got together. She visited frequently with her husband Mark and their kid, and Mom fawned over them like they were royalty. I was 17 the first time I realized I'd become an afterthought in my own home. It was Christmas, and Jessica was visiting with her family. Mom had converted my bedroom into a guest room for them, moving my things into the smaller office space without asking. "It's just for the holidays," Mom said, not meeting my eyes. "Jessica needs the space for the baby's crib." I nodded and said nothing, but something shifted inside me. When I turned 18 and left for college, paid for by Dad, not Mom and Richard, I rarely came home except for Mom's birthday. Dad's apartment became my real home during breaks, and his mother, my grandmother Evelyn, became my rock. After Dad died, Grandma and I grew even closer. I moved into Dad's apartment permanently and tried to rebuild some relationship with Mom, occasionally visiting her and getting to know Ethan, who was growing into a curious, energetic kid. I still felt the sting when Jessica visited with her growing family, now with 2 children, and they stayed in my old room. Mom still lit up around them in a way she never did with me. 6 months ago, I got the assignment that took me across the country. Before leaving, Mom offered to help rent out my apartment. "It could bring in some extra money while you're gone," she suggested over coffee. "No thanks," I replied firmly, "I don't want strangers living there." Mom pressed her lips together but nodded. "Well, I'll keep an eye on it for you. I still have the spare key you gave me last year." Life in the staff housing was lonely but manageable. I called Grandma Evelyn weekly, and we'd chat about everything and nothing. Last Thursday's call changed everything. "Claire," Grandma's voice sounded different, tighter, hesitant. "I'm not one to gossip, but Marge Henderson from my bridge club lives in your building, and she mentioned something that concerned me." My stomach tightened. "What about my apartment?" Another pause. "Marge says Jessica and her family moved in shortly after you left. According to her, your mother and Richard helped them move in." The betrayal hit me like ice water. "That can't be right," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew it was exactly the kind of thing Mom would do. "I'm sorry, sweetheart, I thought you should know." After hanging up, I immediately called Mom, forcing my voice to stay casual. "Hey Mom, just checking in. Is everything okay with my apartment?" "Oh, yes, everything's fine," she answered too quickly. "How's work going?" "Great, actually, I have an old college friend who needs a place to stay. I told her she might be able to use my apartment. She'll stop by to get the key from you." The panic in her voice was immediate. Oh, Claire, I don't think that's a good idea. You always said you didn't want strangers in your place. Something might get damaged, and you're so particular about your things. Mom, I cut her off, my patience snapping. I know Jessica and her family are living in my apartment. The silence confirmed everything. Claire, she finally said with a sigh, yes, it's true, but they had nowhere else to go. Their landlord sold their building, and with the housing market. You did this behind my back, I interrupted. You knew I didn't want anyone staying there. Jessica isn't anyone, Mom snapped, she's family. She's Richard's daughter, she's nothing to me. Don't be childish, Claire, this is temporary. You're not even using the apartment right now. I want them out, today. And I want you to give my spare key to Grandma. Mom's voice hardened, Jessica will stay as long as she needs to. You don't need the apartment right now anyway. It's my apartment, Mom. I have to go, she said coldly, and hung up. I called back immediately, but she didn't answer. I tried Jessica's number, straight to voicemail. I paced my tiny staff apartment, rage building with each step. 6 months of paying utilities on an apartment I wasn't using, only to find out my mother had moved her stepfamily in behind my back. I picked up my phone again and called my boss. Frank, it's Claire, I need to request a transfer back to the home office. It's a family emergency. Frank didn't ask questions. I'd proven myself valuable enough that when I said I needed to go home, he approved it within the hour. The flight home felt endless, every minute that ticked by fueled my anger. By the time we landed, I had rehearsed a dozen different confrontations in my head, none of them ending well. I grabbed my suitcase from the carousel and caught a taxi straight to Grandma Evelyn's house. Her face lit up when she opened the door, but concern quickly replaced her smile. Claire, I didn't expect you back so soon. She pulled me into a hug, her familiar scent of lavender and coffee instantly comforting. I couldn't stay away after what you told me. I dropped my suitcase in her entryway. I need to see what they've done to my place. I'll make us some tea first, she insisted, you look exhausted. While she busied herself in the kitchen, I called my boss to let him know I'd arrived safely. Then I sat at Grandma's kitchen table, watching her move efficiently around the small space. Have you spoken to Mom since you called me? I asked. Grandma shook her head, Margaret and I haven't been on speaking terms since your father left her. She set a steaming mug in front of me. But I did drive by your building yesterday, their car was there, and so was yours. My car, I nearly choked on my tea, the one I left in Mom's garage? Grandma nodded grimly, parked right in front of your building. They're clearly using it without your permission. The thought of them using my things, my apartment, my car, without permission made my blood boil. After finishing my tea, I stood up, I'm going over there. I took a taxi to my apartment building, a renovated warehouse with exposed brick and large windows. I'd fallen in love with the place the first time Dad showed it to me. Now, standing outside it, I felt like a stranger. I took the elevator to the 3rd floor and walked down the familiar hallway to apartment 307, my apartment. Taking a deep breath, I knocked firmly on the door, silence. I knocked again, louder this time. Still nothing, though I could have sworn I heard movement inside. Finally, I pulled out my keys and tried to unlock the door, but the key wouldn't turn. The lock had been changed. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered, pounding on the door again. I know you're in there, this is my apartment. After 5 more minutes of knocking with no response, I gave up and stormed back to the street, calling a taxi to take me to Mom and Richard's house. Their suburban home looked exactly as it had 6 months ago, pristine lawn, trimmed hedges, the swing set Richard had built for Ethan still standing in the backyard. I paid the driver and marched up to the front door, ringing the bell with more force than necessary. Mom opened the door, her face shifting from surprise to something harder when she saw me. Richard appeared behind her, his arms crossed over his chest. Claire, Mom said flatly, what are you doing here? The casual dismissal in her tone stunned me. What am I doing here? I live here, in this city, in my apartment that you gave away without my permission. You should have stayed where you were, Mom replied. Things were working out fine. Fine for who? I demanded. I tried to get into my apartment, but someone changed the locks. Richard stepped forward. Jessica and Mark need that place more than you do. They have children, Claire. You're just one person. I stared at him in disbelief. That doesn't make it their apartment. It's mine, Dad left it to me. And you left it empty, Mom countered. Jessica lost her apartment. Were we supposed to let them be homeless? You could have asked me. Or helped them find another place, or let them stay here. Richard's face darkened. We don't have the space here. Besides, Jessica deserves that apartment more than you. She has a family to support. And what about my car? I asked, remembering what Grandma had told me. The one I left in your garage before I moved? Richard shrugged. We gave it to Jessica. Her car broke down, and she needed transportation for the kids. I turned to Mom, hoping to see some sign of remorse or understanding, but her expression remained impassive. Your things from the apartment are in our garage, she said. You should take them now, they're in the way. In the way, I repeated, my voice hollow, like I've always been, right? Mom flinched but said nothing. I'll get a moving van, I said, pulling out my phone. While I waited for the van to arrive, I stood awkwardly in their driveway, refusing Mom's half-hearted offer to wait inside. When the van finally came, I directed the movers to the garage where stacks of boxes and my furniture had been haphazardly piled. Where to, miss? The head mover asked. I gave him Grandma's address. As the movers loaded my life into the van, Ethan arrived home from school. His face lit up when he saw me. Claire, he ran toward me, but Mom caught his arm. Go inside and start your homework, she told him. Claire is busy. His face fell, but he obeyed, glancing back at me uncertainly before disappearing into the house. When the last box was loaded, I turned to Mom. What are you going to do when I take my apartment back? Because I will. Don't make trouble, Claire, she warned. Jessica has nowhere else to go right now. That's not my problem, I replied, climbing into the passenger seat of the moving van. As we drove away, I caught a glimpse of Mom watching from the doorway, her expression unreadable. At Grandma's house, we unloaded everything into her garage. When the movers left, Grandma put her arm around my shoulders. What now? She asked quietly. I looked at the boxes containing my life, all the things Dad had left me, all the memories and moments packaged away to make room for Jessica and her family. I'll figure it out tomorrow, I said. Right now, I just need to sleep. That night, lying in Grandma's guest room, I made my decision. They thought I would just roll over and accept this, like I had accepted so many other injustices over the years. But not this time. This time I was going to fight back. I woke up early the next morning with renewed determination. After a quick shower and breakfast with Grandma, I sat at her kitchen table with my laptop, researching tenant laws and property rights. What's the plan? Grandma asked, refilling my coffee cup. I'm going to the police, I said, closing my laptop. Jessica and her family are squatters in my apartment. They're using my car without permission. That has to be illegal. I called the local police station and explained my situation. The officer who took my call was sympathetic and told me to come in to file a formal complaint. I kissed Grandma's cheek and headed out. At the station, I met with Officer Martinez, a no-nonsense woman with kind eyes. I showed her my ID, the deed to my apartment, and the car title, all thankfully stored in my cloud account. She nodded, typing notes into her computer. This is clearly unauthorized use of your property. We'll escort you to the premises and assist with the eviction. Relief washed over me. How soon can we do this? I can send officers with you today, give me an hour to arrange it. I spent that hour calling my boss to update him on the situation and drinking bad coffee from the station vending machine. True to her word, Officer Martinez returned with another officer, a tall man named Richards. Ready? She asked. We took separate vehicles. I rode in a taxi since my car was still in Jessica's possession, and met outside my apartment building. As we rode the elevator to the third floor, my heart pounded in my chest. Officer Martinez knocked firmly on my apartment door. "Police, please open the door." After a long moment, I heard shuffling inside. Then a man's voice, Mark, Jessica's husband, called out, "What's this about?" "Sir, please open the door," Officer Richards replied firmly. The door cracked open, and Mark's face appeared, his eyes widening when he saw me standing between the officers. "What the hell, Claire?" he snapped. "Please open the door completely, sir," Officer Martinez instructed. Mark reluctantly swung the door wide. Behind him, Jessica stood in my living room, one child on her hip and the other peeking out from behind her legs. The apartment, my apartment, was strewn with their belongings. Toys littered the floor, unfamiliar furniture had replaced some of mine, and the walls that had once been a soft gray were now painted a bright yellow. "Claire," Jessica said coldly, "you should have called first." "Called to enter my own apartment that you're living in illegally?" I couldn't keep the anger from my voice. Officer Martinez stepped forward. "Ma'am, this apartment legally belongs to Ms. Wilson. You are occupying it without her authorization." Jessica's face flushed. "Her mother gave us permission. We have nowhere else to go, we have children." She bounced the toddler on her hip for emphasis. "That's not legally sufficient," Officer Richards explained. "Only the property owner can grant permanent residence permission." "This is ridiculous," Mark interjected. "We've been living here for months. We've made improvements." "Improvements I never asked for or approved," I countered, looking at the garish yellow walls. Officer Martinez addressed Jessica and Mark firmly. "You need to vacate these premises immediately. Ms. Wilson is the legal owner and has not consented to your residence here." "What about our stuff?" Jessica demanded. "We can't just leave everything." "You can pack essential items now," Officer Richards said. "And arrange to remove the rest within 24 hours. Jessica's face crumpled, tears welling in her eyes. "We have 2 kids. Where are we supposed to go?" She turned to me. "How can you do this to family?" Her words ignited something fierce inside me. "Family? You were never my family, Jessica. You were just the people who took over my mother's attention, my bedroom, and now my apartment and car. You've taken enough from me." Jessica started to cry loudly, which set off both her children. "You're heartless. Just like your father was." "Don't you dare talk about my father," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "Now get your things and get out of my apartment. And leave my car keys on the counter." Mark put his arm around Jessica. "Come on, Jess. Let's just get what we need and go to your dad's. We'll figure this out." I watched from the doorway as they hurriedly packed clothes and toys into suitcases, Jessica shooting me venomous looks between sobs. The officers remained inside, ensuring there was no damage to my property during their hasty packing. An hour later, they were ready to leave. Jessica marched past me without a word, her children trailing behind her. Mark dropped my car keys on the counter with a clatter. "We painted the place, fixed the leaky bathroom faucet, and replaced the broken dishwasher," he said bitterly. "You're welcome." After they left, the officers asked if I wanted to press charges for the unauthorized use of my vehicle. "No," I said after a moment's consideration, "I just want my life back." They nodded and handed me some paperwork to sign, confirming I had regained possession of my property. After they left, I walked slowly through my apartment, taking in all the changes. Besides the yellow walls, they had replaced my comfortable couch with a gaudy floral one, rearranged the kitchen entirely, and converted my home office into a children's bedroom. As I entered the bathroom, I noticed something on the mirror. Written in red lipstick was a single word: bastard. I stared at my reflection behind the crude lettering. 6 months ago, I might have cried. I might have felt guilty for displacing Jessica and her family. But now, all I felt was a cold resolve. I grabbed a paper towel, wet it, and began wiping away the lipstick. When the mirror was clean, I walked to the living room window and looked down at the street. I watched as Mark loaded the last of their suitcases into their car, not my car, which was still parked nearby, but another vehicle that must have belonged to Mom or Richard. Jessica sat in the passenger seat, her face red and puffy from crying. As they drove away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. I hired a locksmith to change all the locks, scheduled professional cleaners, and arranged for my belongings to be moved back from Grandma's garage. The yellow walls were the first to go. I spent an entire day priming and repainting them back to the soft gray I loved. As I worked, my phone rang constantly. Mom called at least a dozen times the first day, then Richard, then even Jessica. I ignored them all, focusing instead on reclaiming my space and my sanity. Only when Grandma called did I answer. Jessica and her family are staying with your mother, she informed me during one of our calls. Margaret called me in a rage, but I hung up on her. Good for you, I said, balanced on a ladder with a paint roller in hand. I'm almost done erasing all traces of them from my apartment. On the third day after the eviction, as I was arranging my books back on their shelves, my phone rang again. It was Mom. Against my better judgment, I answered. What do you want? I asked, not bothering with pleasantries. How could you do this to your sister? She demanded, her voice shrill. Throwing her and those innocent children out onto the street. I set down the book I was holding. First of all, Jessica is not my sister. Second, I didn't throw anyone onto the street, they're staying with you, which is what should have happened in the first place. They can't stay here long term. This house isn't big enough for all of us. That's not my problem, Mom. Maybe you should have thought about that before giving them my apartment without asking me. You're being selfish, she spat. Jessica needs that apartment more than you do. Grandma Evelyn is going to die soon. And then you'll inherit her house too. You could easily give your apartment to Jessica and her family. Is that what this was about? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. You think I'm going to inherit too much, so you decided to redistribute my property without my consent? Don't be dramatic, Claire, we're talking about family here. No, Mom, we're talking about my property that Dad left to me. And for the record, what Grandma decides to do with her house is her business, not yours. There was a pause before Mom spoke again, her voice suddenly conciliatory. Look, Claire, maybe we got off on the wrong foot here. Why don't you come over for dinner tonight? We can discuss this like adults. Ethan misses you. The mention of my little brother tugged at my heart, but I steeled myself. The time for discussion was before you gave away my apartment and car. I'm done talking about this. Claire. And I'm done with you, too, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. Don't call me again, don't come to my apartment, we're finished. You don't mean that, Mom said, but her voice wavered. I do. Tell Ethan I love him, and when he's older, he can reach out to me if he wants to. But you, Richard, Jessica, you're not my family anymore. I hung up before she could respond and blocked her number, along with Richard's and Jessica's. Then I sat on my newly restored couch and cried, not for the relationships I was ending, but for the years I'd spent trying to make them work. The next morning, I woke to knocking at my door. Peering through the peephole, I was surprised to see my boss, Frank. Morning, he said when I opened the door. Thought I'd check in on you. Mind if I come in? As I brewed a fresh pot, Frank wandered around my living room. Nice place, much better than that closet they had you in out west. I smiled despite myself, thanks, it was my dad's. Over coffee, I told him the whole story, the divorce, Mom's remarriage, Dad's death, and the recent apartment drama. He listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. So, he said when I finished, are you ready to come back to work? The home office has missed you. Actually, yes, I need the distraction. Frank nodded, good, there's a project I think you'd be perfect for. It starts Monday. After he left, I called Grandma and invited her over for dinner. As we ate, I told her about my conversation with Mom. I cut her off completely, I admitted, maybe that makes me a terrible person. Grandma reached across the table and squeezed my hand. It makes you a person with boundaries, which is something your mother never respected. Your father would understand. I feel bad about Ethan, though. He'll understand when he's older, Grandma assured me. And if he doesn't, that's his choice to make. Months passed, I threw myself into work, rebuilt my apartment exactly how I wanted it, and spent weekends with Grandma. I heard through her that Jessica and her family had found a rental apartment after staying with Mom and Richard for several weeks. I felt no satisfaction in this news, just relief that the chapter was finally closed. One Saturday morning in early fall, I was having breakfast at my favorite cafe when someone slid into the chair across from me. It was Ethan, his backpack slung over one shoulder. "Hi, Claire," he said cautiously. I blinked in surprise. "How did you find me?" He shrugged. "Mom mentioned you used to come here a lot. I've been checking every Saturday for 3 weeks. Does Mom know you're here?" He shook his head. "She thinks I'm at soccer practice." "You shouldn't lie to her," I said, even as my heart warmed at his determination to see me. "You said I could reach out when I'm older," he replied. "I'm 9.5 now." "That's older, right?" I couldn't help but laugh. "I guess it is. Want some hot chocolate?" As we sat together, Ethan chattering about school and friends, I felt something inside me begin to heal. I didn't need Mom or Richard or Jessica in my life. But maybe, just maybe, I could still be a sister to this bright-eyed boy who had sought me out despite everything. "Can I come see you again next Saturday?" he asked as we parted. I nodded. "I'll be here, same time, same table." As I watched him run off to catch his bus, I thought about family, not the one you're born into or forced to accept, but the one you choose to build. Mine might be small, just Grandma Evelyn, little Ethan, and me, but it was real. It was enough.